You know, if it took the black crime rate out of this country, we'd have the lowest crime rate of any Western nation.
Did you know that the crime rate in Chicago is actually going down?
Really?
And it started when they legalized concealed carry in Illinois.
Really?
And there's not that many even actually got arms yet, but it's a possibility.
Right.
It's true.
It
has actually declined.
Mm-hmm. Does the
the only people that's really afraid of guns is the damn policemen.
I know it.
Well, I teed one off the other day.
Some of them ain't.
That was investigating this theft.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, you know, the prevailing thought around here is that you're more interested in protecting yourself than you are protecting the people. Well, if I thought that, I'd turn my badge in. I said, well, you watch them stop a little old 67, 68-year-old lady out here on the street, see if there ain't 3 of them up there.
What about a 79-year-old man?
Oh, it takes 4.
Did it take 4? And we don't know any 79-year-old men, so we can't confirm that, folks.
Are we on the air?
Yeah, we're on there.
We're on the
internet.
We're on the internet. It's kind of like the Irish. Kind of Irish. Yeah. The you've been molested by thieves again?
Oh yeah, I got broke into. Anthony Fowles, that's Dan's brother.
Yeah.
Possibly. We don't want any lawsuits here. That's a possibility.
Are we on?
Yeah, we're on.
Hey, folks, I take back anything I've said.
Anything that you're liable for.
I'm bad to lie a lot,
in other words, you're saying that's a definite suspicion.
Yeah, I'm bad to lie a lot, folks.
Well, take it from me. He's the biggest liar I've met lately.
I want to welcome you to the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Wild Bob and Ronnie Show, coming to you from LaFollette, Tennessee, US of A, and just going all out over the whole world. And we want to let you know we're pleased that you were able to get us.
Yeah, more pleased sometimes than others. This is R.L. Henson here.
Because I'm going to tell you exactly how we can defeat ISIS with about 50 to 75,000 troops.
Go right ahead. We're listening.
No trouble at all. You know, just like in all government activities, you follow the money. And ISIS is being funded by the oil fields that they seized in northern Iraq, and I guess that would be northern Syria.
They need to give that to the Kurds, don't they? They need to give that to the Kurds.
Well, no, see, they took them away from it wasn't actually Kurdish territory or claimed, it was Iraqi territory. And they're being funded by petroleum on the black market to the tune of $5 million per day. Now, all you do is just go in there, take over the oil fields, put enough there to fight them off. They'll be trying to come back at you and take them back, and just hold the oil field until they run out of money and they have to throw rocks. Simplest thing in the world.
What Hussein did is he pulled back, he set his afire, or whatever. There's a good possibility that they would do the same, as they would set them on fire. But anyhow,
but it was still to set a bunch of them on fire. But we got Red Adair. He'll come out and go out there and put all that fire down, huh?
He's dead.
Well, did he?
His company still exists.
Who took over for him?
I don't know. I'm sure the company still exists.
Well, I'm sorry about that.
I think he is. Let's see here.
Don't know.
Well, it's kind of interesting how they put them out with an explosive.
Yeah.
But the explosive they use has to consume.
Yeah, he died in 2004. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, he died in 2004.
Does he know it?
Well, I guess he does. He's already pushing up daisies.
Okay.
August the 7th, 2004 was an American oil well firefighter who became world notable as an innovator in a highly specialized and extremely hazardous profession, extinguishing and
He can put out a fire. All you do is just put explosives in there, ignite the oxygen, takes all the oxygen away.
All you do is get a couple of die-hard citizens to roll a little dynamite up there and light it, and it blows it out.
There you go.
He's 89 years old, though. That's a pretty good record for a man fighting fire.
Not bad.
Never had thought about that, but now, dynamite, if never had thought about it consuming the oxygen.
Well, it has to. It wouldn't explode. You can't explode it in an oxygen-free area.
That's why that you have to put an oxidizer.
Wait a minute. You can. You can explode it because of the
oxidation.
Oxide,
you got oxidizers.
Yeah. But what it does, the heat creates a vacuum around it.
Yeah,
it blows the flame out and at the same time creates a vacuum.
Yeah. But you know, if you've got a lot of hardware there that's hot, it could spontaneously combust because that oxygen is going to come back real quick.
Yeah, sometimes you have to light it more than once.
Yeah, light it.
Well, really, they roll that stuff in there and light it, and sometimes it blows out and sometimes it don't. It's just like blowing out a candle.
Wait just a minute. Light it?
Yeah.
Now, that was back years ago.
Well, it burns, don't it?
Well,
I don't. People who build engines refer to a remanufactured engine when you first started is lighting it.
Is that right?
You don't actually stick them, but you do light it. If you stop and think about it, you do light it.
The spark plug lights it up when the gasoline, okay. But with explosives, it seems to me like the when they went in with one charge, whatever charge they decide or come to that they think they have enough explosives to extinguish it or rob it from flame or oxygen, seems to me like the number one thing to do then was to have a secondary explosion within so many milliseconds that definitely takes care of it.
It's like, collapsing a building. You got to bang, bang, bang in the right order.
Yeah, in them there milliseconds.
All you got to do is get that guy to roll it in there. That's the man that you appreciate.
Yeah, I'd say he's on. Well, that's another thing, and I've experienced this somewhere. I can't remember where it was at, but pushing up a brush pile and it burning. They've been many a good machine burn up doing that. And there's no boys telling me about it, and he couldn't understand why. He had a brand new backhoe, and he's pushing up in this fire he had burning. He pushed up in there, and the engine died. And before they could get it snaked out, it burned his tires up and some other damage to it. And he said that machine had never failed to start. So he got back, and I said, well, I'll tell you, man, what you did. I said, you run that engine in there, and I said, you get up into where the flame's going up. I said, there's no oxygen. I said, the engine can't run without oxygen. And I know a guy burned a D6. I mean, just smoked it. There wasn't nothing left of it. If you're going to do that, you need to run your pipe out back somewhere for your air intake. If you're going to get in that where it's that hot.
There was a story, sir.
I bought this farm back in the 60s, and where I lived, which wasn't about 40-some miles away, we had never heard of Johnson grass.
Oh boy, I got you a mess.
We never heard of it in our little neck of the woods. Gray, loamy soil, real deep, but no Johnson grass. So I bought this farm down there, and I went down there, and that was the most prettiest field of grass I ever seen. I mean, it's as green as a gourd, the bottom land. So I went in there and I turned it in February. I said, what raised me a crop of corn down here this year in deep, rich soil? Well, I came back about April or May or something like that. It was back like it was before, only thicker.
Yeah.
So I said, well, what I'll do, I'll cut it and I'll burn it. So I did. I cut it, all the hay down, lit it, and I burned it. Burned good. Outside, I'd go back and I'd plow it again. I had on diesel, I can't remember what kind of tractor it was a diesel. And I looked down at them thing was on fire because all that coal had gone out and everything. I about moved my hands out throwing dirt on it to get it out. Then nothing else put out with. I finally got it out. And I've learned this lesson about.
You know, I've got Johnson grass out there where I live, out there in the field, and
Right.
it started back probably 70 years ago. My daddy got a neighbor to come out there and plow.
And dropped a few.
He
Well-
had Johnson grass on his land, and he brought some out there left over hanging on the plow and started from that. Now I've got patches all over the place. What I was going to tell you a minute ago, and this is kind of unrelated to that, but it relates to something we started on. There was a story going around years ago after the Chinese exploded the first atomic bomb. And
Their first one or after we fired?
Their first one.
Okay.
And I don't think it's true, but it's a good story. They said that the Chinese could not compute critical mass. That's how much U-235 it takes to bring together in order to sustain a reaction.
Chain reaction.
So what they did was they put a chunk here and a chunk here that was something subcritical. And then they had these guys to carry a little chunk in there and lay down beside of it. And that guy that took the last chunk in there became a national hero because he determined empirically how much it took to make it go boom.
Uh-huh.
Did you check that thorium thing out yet?
Run it. Still can't find it. I've got one digit that I cannot find on my keyboard.
What's a digit you can't find?
Well, it's kind of like a B, a C, a D, but there's one in there that the very last one appears to be an I. And it seems to be an I of large case, but in half the size.
We ought to run, if I could figure out a way to rerun that thing here, I would. It's, let's see.
Gentlemen, what do you think is going to be the crisis?
We're going to do a couple of new things on.
What's going to be the crisis this week?
What?
What's going to be our crisis
What
this
the
week?
crisis this week is going to be,
I heard a good one the other day. We had an airplane, military aircraft, somewhere off the shores of China, doing a little submarine hunting, locating submarines or whatever else. And one of the China's fighter planes came up on it and did a flyby. And I think they did a total of 3 flybys. And from the way I read the description, it came up underneath the United States aircraft and done a barrel roll across the top of it. And and then in all the maneuvers come around, and from what I understood, he cut across either the bow or the plane one to the other at about 20 to 40 feet like that, and turned his belly up to them so they could take a good look at what he was carrying. And of course I think we did our formal objection to it, and then the Chinese made a statement back that he was professional and that there was no danger or whatever else. Thought that was kind of interesting.
well, you know, when they put the MiGs up against our airplanes, they did compare to, well, about, I think it was about 17, 18 to 1. We beat down 17, 18 of theirs to 1 of ours, you know. And so the MiG, the Chinese mastery of aviation is not all that great.
The
Those were Russian.
right, the Russian. The MiG had a slight advantage as far as deployment because you could even land one of the things, from what I can find out, on a dirt landing strip, that they were so tolerant of debris or whatever
Right.
else. Whereas the engines we're running, they won't tolerate anything, not even a coin or
Right.
a washer, let alone gravel
Right.
or dust or whatever
Right.
else.
Right.
So, but anyhow,
Well, if that's true, you know, that's like me. You're in the aircraft gun rather than shooting bullets, just shoot a whole damn keg of nails up there.
you got a good point there. I never had thought about it. If you got a craft close enough, all you got to do is just dump some debris,
Right, yeah.
and if he sucks it in his
Right,
intake,
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
well,
or maybe a drone.
you know, you can take all of the unique assets, as General Dempsey said, that we have to combat ISIS, but it still boils down to this. You're going to have to get in there and kill more of them than they kill of you. And that's what it amounts to.
If in a war of attrition, if you're losing 1 for 1,
You ain't winning.
you're not winning anything, because there's a lot of countries that can put out a lot more numbers.
Well, your Chinese, they can march them 5 abreast, you know, and march forever because they'll multiply more on the end than they will, march them straight into the sea, 5 abreast, and march them forever, and they'll multiply and grow up and be able to keep that going on forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But anyhow, war seems to me like there's no winners in it, no matter which way you go. And I think conservatively, but I'm beginning to try to understand the left-wing radical or left-wing liberal way of looking at things. And I've been noticing we have lots of disasters. So you take like the earthquake we had, or the tornado, or whatever. There's people out there that look at this. They don't say it, but they look at it as, man, look what this is going to do to the economy. Now you take all the things that are going on. The stock market keeps going up, and of course nobody's talking anymore about the stimulus that's being pumped in every month.
Yeah, they were doing 80 billion a
85 billion a month, and this was supposed to be cut back. Now whether it is or not, I'm not sure, but at somewhere along the line of about October, my understanding was that the stimulus was supposed to end. We were to cut it by $10 billion a month for 8 months or something like that, or 7 months, and then $15 billion the last month.
Right.
Now, whether it's being done, I don't know.
Well,
I haven't heard any news articles
why
about
in the
it.
world, you know, with what Obama seems to be trying to do, or what he said he was going to do, was to work on the top 1% of the wealth in this country and deploy it, or whatever you call it, and get it to the poorer people. But under Obama, the rich has got richer and the poor has got poorer.
Right.
So,
But there's that digit I'm telling you about at the end of that I cannot find on the keyboard. Anyhow, yeah.
That's an eye.
Well, I tried it with an eye.
Well, do this.
I will. I'll go that route. Sure will. Thank you. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people out there in society, or whatever, that I consider to be the liberal part, think that every time we have a disaster, it helps the economy. If you got a big storm comes through and it blows down all the houses, or you get a big riot and they burn up everything, everybody has to shell out the money, and it creates jobs.
That is a broken window fallacy.
Yeah, that's.
What was his name?
well,
It's
you
a
know,
theory.
That's probably true, because you look at all the disasters that we've had recently, with fires raging in the western states, floods and tornadoes, and it has reduced our workforce to the smallest point that it's ever been. So.
But the thinking, like Ronnie says, of the broken window, if you go out and break a window, you create a job for 2 or 3 people. The guy that makes the glass and the one that puts it in.
That's 2 or 3 Polacks that
Well,
put in a window glass.
Right.
No offense to
No offense, man.
But you take everything that costs money, according to what I consider to be the liberal part of our society,
That's
thinks
those
that,
people that can't add and subtract or multiply.
well, they can't see 2 or 3 stages out there. The way I see it, anytime that anything is destroyed, what you're doing, you're taking away from a person's disposable income that they could be buying something else rather than replacing something that's destroyed.
Well, what a lot of people don't realize that the insurance industry in our country is a pool of resources. They have tremendous amounts of capital available to them. And in a natural disaster where they have to spend out a lot of that money that they've collected, then we are less able to do worthwhile projects. We're only putting back what we had.
We're only replacing what we had. And the insurance companies then raise the rates on the people, so they're actually, all they're doing is loaning your own money back to you.
Well, sure.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Okay.
I had
These are not ones, they're L's.
Okay.
I
Okay.
had the house of mine to burn out the attic and over one roof and over one room and part of a hall. I figured out if I had carried insurance on that property, I would probably have spent somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know, $40-some thousand.
Mm-hmm.
I'd tear it down, rebuild it cheaper than that.
Right. Well, when I started out years and years ago, I had a choice as to whether to buy insurance and all the other amenities and whatever that goes along with living a comfortable life. And I chose instead every dime that I could make or whatever or so forth, I reinvested in a piece of equipment or something like that. And my theory was that if something happened to me, if I got killed, sell a piece of junk and bury me. It was a real simple philosophy.
Right.
And I went for, I'm going to say 30-some years that way. And anytime I had an accident, if I had a doctor thing, I took care of it. And I have even saved a few bucks by doing my own stitches.
Right.
I've sewed up a few of my own.
Well, you know, the
And-
problem is with that is you can't get some places to accept cash. If you go in, there are places, I mean, I've had the experience myself.
I have too.
You cannot get some doctors to look at you if you say, but I can pay you. They, well, we don't take that kind of insurance. That ain't insurance, that's cash. I don't know what to do with that.
This is where we're being led to by a society.
I had a local doctor. I've been trying to avoid doctors as long as I could because I found out that most people who die have recently been in a hospital or around a doctor.
Yeah.
And I've just come to the conclusion that that ain't healthy.
Well,
And there's a guy here locally who is an MD, and I called him up and I said I'd like to come and see you. And he said, well, what kind of insurance do you have? And I told him. And he said, well, I don't accept that. And I said, this is the actual doctor now, man.
don't accept cash.
And I said, well, I've got, I said, I've got cash. And he said, well, I can't do that. And I said, okay, thank you.
You know, it is written on the money, the rules by which it can be used. It can be used for all debts, both public and private, or so it is stated.
Well, I think maybe what his problem was is he's probably under contract to one of these medical groups
Right?
to take their patients, and if anybody else come, he wouldn't take them.
Right?
But he turned down cash. I said, I can pay you. No, I can't take cash.
That's interesting. That I can understand. We were in a small place down another state or two down, and we rolled into a place where we was picking up equipment, and normally there's a certain place that would stay there if we was in that community. Went in there about 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and all we wanted was a room for till the next morning. And we had a heck of a time trying to get them, and finally they did accept cash. But they had to call and wake everybody in the country up, I reckon, to get an authorization to allow us to pay with cash.
I've run into that more than one place.
Well,
That just shows you how much money's worth anymore.
Absolutely. The government, I don't think, will accept cash on anything, will they?
I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing. There's a place down here in the holler that'll take cash.
Yeah, I believe I know the place you're talking
There
about.
wouldn't be a thing about diggers.
What
I'll tell you.
All-American do right here where Digger is.
He uses All-American gas and All-American product.
He,
Is that right?
And
He
makes
must be-
57, 59 flavors.
49.
Oh, well, okay.
the other day,
But he's working on a new combination.
Digger Wilson, the middle of the road in Sawmill Holler, 5625.
444. Yeah, 5444. We
He sells
Go see
propane
Digger, man. He picks you up this winter.
for all your propane needs. You know who that woman was you was talking to as you come
Hey,
in?
I got a big 3-burner cooker up there, propane cooker.
You know who that woman was you spoke to coming down through there?
Huh?
You know who that woman was getting out of the car when you come walking down
Oh
through there?
yeah, sure I do. That's what's his name? Daryl. What's his name's mother? That preacher that died.
Is that all you know about her?
I know where she lives.
Is that all you know about her?
Probably.
She's Digger Wilson's sister.
Is that Digger's
Yes,
sister?
sir.
Well, I knew Digger's other sister too.
She's Ford.
Huh?
He's got more than one. Did you know the Ford?
Well, no, there was one of them died.
Oh, I don't remember who that is.
Huh?
I didn't know her, don't think.
Yeah, I knew her too. They both went to Little Whitman Holler Church out here,
Yeah.
and I went to church with them.
She wasn't a Ford, was she?
Huh?
She wasn't a Ford, was she?
I don't know what her name was. I just know they could sure do some good cooking.
Well, she
for
may be
homecoming.
gone, but I didn't think she was dead, but she
Yeah.
may be. Anyway, Digger, he's the man you want to see if you got any propane needs or just
Right.
need some general information.
Right.
Go down and see him. 562-554.
444. Right.
Okay, I'm done now with the commercials.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
go
God.
see Digger.
We've lost another person. I'm sure you're familiar with Lester Russell.
Yeah,
Yeah, he passed
when?
yesterday.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He's had Alzheimer's, right?
Yeah, that was an interesting person. Very interesting. He always laughing and having a good time.
He's raising Demery. That's what you got to do.
Well,
He's raising Demery.
He's told me stories, and some of them they've really stuck
He
with me.
told me a few stories too.
Yeah, but he was a good feller. He just
He married his neighbor.
did he?
Yeah.
Well, did you ever hear about his father passing away?
I never did know his daddy or know anything about him.
Well, his dad, Lester's told me this story a long time ago. His dad, they had a team that run away or something, or got out anyhow. But anyhow, they went to catch the team, the horse or mule or whatever it had run away. And he started to walk out, and he stopped and come back and took his wallet out and gave it to his wife. And he said, well, you don't never know what'll happen, you know. And he gave her his whatever, turned around and walked right back out through the apple orchard, and lightning struck the tree right where he was at and killed him by lightning.
I never did know he was gone. It's the first time I ever knew anything about him. And his Rester's mother was a widow woman. Her name was
Tennessee, okay.
Tennessee Russell.
Yeah. Well, that story, they said that the odd thing about it was that he had never done such a thing. You know what I'm saying is to take his wallet out and give it to somebody and say, you know, something like you don't never know what might happen. And then
I knew a guy.
What, you have lightning?
you walked right out through the yard or something started through the orchard, and out the lightning struck. I don't know whether it struck him or the tree, but anyhow, it
Killed
Struck
killed
both of them, didn't he?
never struck both of them. You know, lightning covers a pretty good size area.
I had a guy that, well, his name was John Gross. There's two John Grosses. This is one lived here in the Follett. He just had one eye. There was a horse or a mule or something back when he was a kid that throwed this rock out of its
Yeah.
his hoof and threw it and put his eye out. And he was a good man, hard-working, dependable, honest as he could be. Come from a good family, and he had a charge account here with us. and he always paid a certain time every month, and he come in and paid early one month, and we didn't think anything about it. But they said that where he went to church, he also went in there and told them people, said, I won't be back anymore, but I do appreciate knowing everybody and all that. And that was on a Friday, and he died a day or two later, and never did go back.
Mm.
And there wasn't any indication that he was sick or anything. He was just a good man and had enough forewarning to take care of his affairs.
I think sometimes that people are forewarned and about things that'll happen or are going to happen, and I think when you're kind of young, you just kind of brush it off. And myself, I've got to the point anymore, if I get a premonition about something, I try to be a little more careful for a while.
That pre-ammunition is good stuff.
That pre-ammunition, I've had some that I didn't pay close attention to that they got my attention afterwards.
I've had a little bit of pre-ammunition in my life too.
Yeah, Lordy. I read an article the other day that Oak Ridge set them up a biomass energy production thing.
Kind of like solar panels.
Yeah, kind of like solar panels, but they had this idea that they was going to burn chips, like where we chip up wood and all this stuff.
Wasn't going out there getting buffalo chips, was it?
No, I don't think there's that many buffalo around. I think they was chewing up trees, biomass or whatever.
Right.
And the technology and whatever, and the company put this thing together, I think they collected around $90 million for it. It's been running for about 4 or 5 years, something like.
The solar panels on the side.
Yeah, solar panels on the side. But anyhow, it's turned out that its cost here, the overrun cost is going to be a loss of about almost $70 million. So there's another piece of money spent. It's amazing how Oak Ridge, if they do things like what some of the stuff I read, can't even think of the name of it right now, that they're building, uranium processing facility.
Okay.
And it started out at about $6 billion, and they've ended $6 billion with a B, and now they've the thing run up to where it was going to cost about $18 billion, and they set them up a commission to see how they could cut it down. So they think they cut it back down to, I want to say maybe $8 billion. But anyhow, the engineering on it, the building, when it was engineered out and whatever else, they missed the area that they needed. They didn't build it large enough in their preliminary, their original design.
Kind of like our governmental center down here.
Yeah, right. But they figured out that by the way they could salvage that, since they'd already done the groundwork and whatever, they could build it higher. So that's what they decided to do, to make it higher instead of wider. But anyhow, they lost $500 million was wasted in the preliminary engineering of it. And that's a lot of money to me. But we pump a lot of money into things that I don't see how we're going to continue. The United States of America has a workforce of a certain number of people. It's just like us sitting here. We've worked for years, and along with so many millions of other people. But our national debt tells us that we, the working people of this country, cannot produce enough goods and services to take care of this country, plus all the other stuff that we're footing the bill for in other countries. And that's the $17 trillion that we owe. Now, whenever I say we owe this, The working people is the ones that owe this, because the people who can't work, and when I say people that can't or don't work, I'm including everybody, because it's a number. The people who are retired, who are too young to work, won't work, you name it, whatever it is, there's not enough people who are willing and able to work to carry the debt of the world. We might think we can, but that $17 trillion debt we owe says we cannot carry it.
Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg. We got somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 trillion in obligations that we will have to meet.
That is correct.
And that's more money than the entire world.
Okay.
Our grandchildren and children.
They'll
Our
never pay it
children
out.
and grandchildren and great-grandchildren have got to meet that obligation if they don't default on it.
They'll default on it. They cannot,
I
because
think
the
they're
debt.
planning I think they're planning to do what made some millionaires back in the 70s when they went off the gold standard. I think we're going to inflate our way out of that.
We will
Well,
not
you know,
get out of it, even though
we owe $19 trillion, and if it gets to the dollar just worth 2 cents, and we got the money to pay for it.
I see your point. Right. As long as we're dealing with people, which I don't believe we are at this point in time, I feel that China and other countries who are buying our debt are not buying it at face value as to whatever the notes are. I think that there's no doubt about it, all the assets of this nation stand good. Now, and I'm talking about our personal assets along with the assets that the government's taken. And I mean property. The government owns tons of real estate, oil rights, you name it, whatever. But I think those things are standing good for that debt. And when we default on our debt, there's going to be countries, and I'd say right now there's countries who can collect that debt by force if necessary.
Well, maybe, since the federal government owns Amwar province in Alaska, maybe they can give that in payment of our debt, and they can drill oil for that.
Well, there's already disagreements in the Arctic.
That's in the sea, under the sea.
Under the sea. Russia.
Everybody's fighting over the North Pole.
And China.
Underwater.
Russia, my understanding is, has planted a flag on the ocean floor.
Yeah.
And I believe this goes back to the colonial days. If you stepped foot on land and planted your flag, you owned it.
We got one on the moon.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's a big place to own.
What about the people who cross the border? If they just bring them a flag with them, as soon as they set foot there, just stick that flag in the ground.
They did that, and we took it away from them.
We took their flag away from them. But anyhow, we're not in good shape as far as finances or anything else. We can look around here, but not only this debt that the government owes, I'm going to say 90% of the municipalities and the counties are in debt as well. Just like our county, this right here is in debt somewhere close to $100 million. Now the city says they're not in debt, which they may not be, but they do have outstanding loans as far as
they're using up their excess funds they got from selling the hospital, ain't they?
I don't know where those funds are at. I think they've kind of got they're somewhere, and I'd like to know in what
I know how
financial
the county could save money.
Go ahead and put it on.
They could operate their ambulance service the way that Vital Care operates their service.
Yeah.
This is true. Many years ago, I know what you're saying. Go ahead if you want to.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying that John Bond branched off, and I'm going to say, he probably took the cream of the crop and left the county with some of the slower pay stuff. But in the end, everybody gets paid if they file the right paperwork. And John Bond, when he went off on his own, he started his own independent service. And if he fails to get paid and goes out of business, we ain't stuck holding no bills. I mean, it's just tough.
This is true. He would have to keep his paperwork up, and I'd say that he gets paid just as well as our county Campbell County.
You know, a record here is we sacrificed $600,000 because somebody failed to file the right paperwork. I bet you an independent business, John Bond, for instance, would not let the paperwork lapse and fail to get that $600,000. In fact, if he didn't have time to do it, you'd go up and do it for him for half of it.
Oh, absolutely.
So the point is, an independent business seems to work a whole lot more efficiently, as Vital Care does, and they save the county money in the long run, and it would be nice if we appreciated him enough to do business with him anytime we drunk rotten tomato juice, like somebody I can name, and called him up at 562-9370.
That's Vital Care. They got tender loving care. They'll look after you. If you don't like their services, they know you're not going to come back to them.
If you happen to be watching this on the UGG TV, if you look right over to the side, that little number will come up there, 562-9370. They're good people to deal with. We hope you're never sick, and I'm sure John does too, but you're going to get sick sooner or later because nobody lives forever. Call them up and have a ride to the hospital or back. They're good people to deal with.
They have a ventilator, mobile ventilator. They're the only ones in this area that has one.
So if you need ventilated, call them up. If you need incubated, you need to call.
Rather than putting a brown paper bag over your head, just go and get on that ventilator that John's got.
That's right. Them there brown paper bags pretty good for hiccups. So. What's going on there?
That deprives you of oxygen.
Yeah, get that CO2 up.
Yeah, get that CO2 up. That.
You ever try to put out a oil fire with a brown paper bag?
No, but you can do it with enough CO2.
Yeah, if you could dump enough CO2 on it, it would smother it.
You used to buy our fire extinguishers that had, I can't remember.
Carbon tetrachloride.
No. I'm talking about, it was one of the noble gases that...
argon.
Don't believe
argon will run the oxygen away.
Don't believe it was argon.
Carbon dioxide, argon.
No.
I got a tank of that with me.
Anyway, you used to could buy these things, a little old can. We used to, right over here on the other side, back when this was opened up, we used to start engines over there, and occasionally we'd get a fire. I mean, like about twice a week.
Yeah.
And I kept these little spray cans, and you could squirt them on there, and the fire would go out, and you didn't have no mess clean up because all it did was just drive the oxygen away, and it'd go out. And they also used them in these computer centers. When you've got a whole building full of servers and whatnot, and you get a fire, you don't want to go squirting any kind of a liquid in there, because what you get is a mess. So they were set to, whenever they had to put out a fire, just release this. I'll tell you what it is in a few minutes. I'll look it up, but he'd release this noble gas, and it wouldn't burn. The fire would go out, and no mess clean up, and you start over. But they outlawed them because it was depleting the ozone.
Right.
And you couldn't buy them. I mean, they work too good. Anything works, they'll do away with it.
Well, you know, they started that in a lot of regions. They started this ozone depletion thing was to get back at this guy that was making these huge political contributions to Richard Nixon. What was his name? Aspinall?
Who?
He was making all these huge political contributions to Richard Nixon.
I don't know.
He was the one that invented and had the patent on the aerosol cans.
Okay.
And of course, was very, very rich.
The aerosol propellant is flammable, if I'm not mistaken, or most of them were, like hairspray and whatever else.
Oh, yeah. You can light a hairspray.
Yeah.
Put a match out there and just get a continuous fire.
Ether we used to get, for ether.
Right.
I'm sure everybody that's ever messed with a piece of equipment is aired up tires with them.
Right.
Blow a tire up.
Halon.
Huh?
Halon. You know,
That's-
if you got in a room full of that, it would accumulate in your lungs because it was
Just
heavier
drown
than
you?
air, and
Yeah.
you would suffocate. So what you did, if you got a guy out of a bunch of that, he'd inhaled too much of it and he was dying, you got
Turn
to
him
take him
upside
out,
down.
turn him upside
Yeah.
down, and it'd run out his mouth and nose,
Yeah.
and he could breathe again.
Argon's the same way.
Yeah.
You have to be careful about doing aluminum and welding with argon.
Yeah, especially in a tank. If you're inside,
Right.
there's all sorts of things that. One of the key things that really surprised me is they send us to safety programs and all this stuff, where this will blow up, that'll blow up. But the thing that really surprised me was a guy got blown up or got killed with antifreeze. He had an antifreeze drum that was empty. So he put his torch to it to cut the top out of it. And the thing blew up. It exploded. And that really surprised me.
Antifreeze is an alcohol.
Yeah, that's right. It'll explode.
I didn't know that.
And it will burn.
Yeah.
And the guy, they showed us a shaft there turning. That shaft was hot. And that antifreeze, it was pure antifreeze, was dripping off and it was burning. And once you mix it with water, it won't do that. But pure antifreeze and the vapor off of it is explosive.
I didn't know that.
Sure is.
That.
And it will burn. Well, I didn't know it either. I thought, boy, we got surprised here.
I saw a video of this guy that was unloading this. It was like a short bed tanker bringing gas into a shell station. He climbed up on top of it and opens the hatch to see how much gas is in it. You gonna hook it up?
Yeah.
And he takes his cell phone out and opens it up to look down there and see.
Oh.
And I don't know where you get a spark from.
I
a cell
don't either.
phone, but he apparently did, and hit ignited, and he falls off of the tank, and I don't know whatever happened to him after that. And I'm thinking that the flames, were probably the least of his worries, because he fell off that truck. I mean,
About 12 foot?
Yeah, well, 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Maybe 10, and that couldn't have been too healthy.
No, because I guarantee it's sitting on solid ground.
Yep.
We had a resident here years ago, a local resident, that got blown up with a tanker. It blew up.
Talking about a guy
Yeah.
on the roof.
No, I'm talking about another guy.
He got acid.
I was standing
Yeah.
beside an old boy that was welding on a gas tank. He was brazing the gas tank. That thing took off and went plumb through a 2x6 door.
Yeah. The gas inside, I understand. I had a fellow make me an offer one time. We had some tanks. I think they were, I want to say 4,000 gallon. They may have been 6,000 gallon underground tanks. That a metal tank years ago used to be bad for static electricity. And that static electricity will burn a hole in them.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow in the deal, he got so many tanks, we got so many tanks.
Action's what you got.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got the positive and the negative and whatever
It's
else.
like a battery.
And I was offered the opportunity to weld these up,
Yeah.
and I passed on it. Usually I've always got something to prove, but I got to look at that thing. And if you make a mistake,
I used to cut a bunch of propane tanks open up here, and I got where I had me a big piece of metal, and I stick that thing over there and spark it, see if anything in it. And
Yeah.
if it didn't blow up, I'd cut it up.
right? There's a way that you can do these tanks.
Do 'em
What you?
underwater.
Pardon?
You can do them underwater.
If you fill them with water, is that what you're saying?
And you
Well, I
also-
have
you
welded.
also pump them full of CO2.
I have welded tanks on trucks. I'm talking about the diesel fuel tanks. I've had a crack in a tank and weld it up.
Right.
But what I'd do is I'd fill it full of diesel,
You can do that.
and I'd weld it with it full of fuel. And I could kind of, what I did, I didn't know what I was doing, but what I'd do is I'd weld and I'd listen. And when I hear the fuel go to boiling, I'd stop.
Right.
And it's kind of hard to hear whenever you got an arc welder running,
Oh,
You
yeah.
ever-
but I'd pay attention as
you
best
ever
I
seen
could.
anybody pour kerosene on coals whenever it starts?
Oh, that white smoke?
Yeah.
Oh man,
You
that's
don't want no
explosive,
spark
buddy.
when you got that white
That's
smoke.
explosive.
You wouldn't happen to need a 400 amp Arco welder, would you?
No, sir. I tell you, I've welded so much that I have no desire to weld. I know I still have to do
I got a
something.
400 amp Arco welder
Oh.
sitting out my house. I
That's
sure would like to make somebody a
Is-
proud owner.
Is it a portable with a power unit on it?
Portable, yeah, it's on wheels.
Yeah. I'll tell you, welding is something that it is work, and there's an art to it, And what I did, my welding was enough to get by. I could weld truck frames, you know, that type of stuff. Never did weld gas lines. But I know a young fella who is really doing a lot of that. I mean, he's really getting up there.
Well,
and I might make
like
mention of
real
this.
proud owner of that RO
Yeah.
welder. I hooked it up down here, took all the power I got just to get it going. You know, I couldn't weld it with it on 100 amp down here.
Oh, it's not got a power unit on it?
Huh?
It's got it doesn't have an engine on it?
No.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it
Yeah.
runs off of AC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking it was a portable where it has its own power
It's
unit.
it's portable and they can move it around, but it's not self-contained, you know.
The welding there's some work to welding. And especially if you go into fabricating. If you start fabricating, it's not the welding's part of the last process where you have to do all the engineering, cutting, and
Right.
making the parts.
How do you weld copper?
Weld copper. There's a way to do it, and I can't think of it right now. There's ways of doing things now that are late model. Have you heard of spray welding?
And what?
Spray welding.
Yeah, I have.
This is an interesting thing, and you weld with a torch.
Okay.
And like if you want to build a shaft or anything like this, and you've got a container on top of the torch.
No, I've seen that where you build up shafts.
Yeah, that's spray welding.
You know
And
what
you
it's
put-
called? They just
yeah.
keep drizzling these particles onto it and build
Well,
it
the
up.
Germans have come out with a water welder. Have you heard of that?
No, I hadn't heard of
I'll
that.
get you that article, you know, and it operates on very low current and very, very economical, and it'll do a lot of things that your arc welder will not do.
How do
Well,
you
it's
weld with
interesting.
water?
It's basically, well, they use water in the welding process.
Well, the reason I asked about copper, you know, they've unearthed some ancient Roman or Greek or somewhere cities that had the copper actually welded.
Well, to me, the first thing I would think is rather than weld it, you would fuse it. You know,
Well,
but
you know, that's the way the blacksmiths used to do it. They
Yeah,
get it
they
hot and
fuse it.
hammer it, but you can't do that with copper.
you mean copper won't fuse together?
Apparently not. You can't get it hot and start hammering on it.
No,
It
that's
just-
not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you take two pieces of copper, put them in a mold, and let them come up to each other, and then heat them to a melting point, and put more
Well,
copper in them.
obviously
they
some
would
way they
fuse.
did it, but they've never been able to repeat it, as far as I know, with the technology that we think they have.
We
at
can't
that
even
time.
reverse engineer it.
Well,
Folks,
now,
this is
okay.
welding 101.
Yeah.
have you ever heard that there's a hitching post somewhere in Austria or somewhere that's made out of iron in the ground, got a eye on it so you can tie your horse up to it. It's been there for at least 400 years and it's never rusted.
It's not oxidized. Interesting.
I don't know how they did it.
Well,
They're like the Stradivarius of
it's
of
kind
hitching posts.
you know, you would think with the technology and all the engineering and the high-tech laboratories we've got that we could reverse engineer anything out here that we encounter.
Let me tell you, the most amazing thing I see is not what we invent and not what we're able to create, but what we're able to manufacture. If you ever just want to be amazed by technology with something simple that takes a lot of ingenuity, you go to Dunkin' Donuts and watch that donut thing. It's all automated. It goes through there and it squirts out the door and it comes down through there and gets squirted
Drops
with
in that hot
whatever it needs to
oil
and
or
baked and
whatever.
everything. And it's all just hands-free.
Right.
We do all sorts of things that way. And do you imagine how much, well, just for instance, a hay baler, how much technology.
Oh my goodness.
You know, they say
Right.
that the first hay baler, this guy that was known for creating farm implements, whittled out some sticks and told these guys to go build it, and they'd have a knot tire back when they used
Yeah.
to use string,
Mhm.
the square bales, and they built it. John Deere or somebody built it and it worked, and they started selling them, and they said, well, what are we going to do if something breaks? We don't know how it works.
Yeah.
This guy might die.
Yeah.
So they put a camera on there and took pictures of it and run it in slow motion to see how that knot
Yeah,
tying
how it ties
process worked.
Well, that's something I've worked hay, but I've never worked on a hay baler.
I've always
I've
been
worked on a little
amazed
bit
with
of
a
everything.
sewing machine. You stop thinking
Oh,
about
a sewing machine just wrecks my mind.
Well, my mother couldn't see too good, and I had to thread those old Singer sewing machines and wind the bobbin and all that. The yellow thing for the thing, and wind that bobbin full of thread real quick, and she couldn't see good, and I had to thread and handle that.
Well, you know,
So-
that thing, that nail punches that loop down through there, and this other thing from the bobbin goes up and runs something through
Yeah,
it.
and yeah.
And then it just keeps doing that, and that is absolutely amazing.
Right. Well, when you were talking about donuts a while ago,
Yeah.
back in the, do either one of you know why they put holes in donuts?
So they're brown all the way around?
Would it have to be so you can hold the thing, or would it have to be something shipping or handling or something?
Very simple. That's the same donut.
There
Well,
you
we've
go.
got one of them there
But
people
they-
that you used to
yeah.
see on The Sopranos, one of them wise guys.
Yeah.
in here.
But see, now you can buy the holes too. You can buy
Yeah.
them.
You buy
They call
donut holes, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. You
And
can
if
buy
it-
some other kind of
if-
holes if you
If they're
shop
made out
around.
of cornbread, they call them hush puppies. Yeah,
The
Lord.
best part about the sanitary seafood in Morehead City is
Yeah.
their
Hush puppies.
hush puppies don't have onions. I can eat them.
Really?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you who can make some good hush puppies is Elizabeth. She can make them without onions. I mean, she makes them.
Yeah, but she ain't never invited me down to eat none.
She doesn't even realize how good she can make a hush
I
puppy.
went down to Miami, and my main reason, well, second to main reason for going down there is getting good seafood, and he ended up down there in Key West and got some seafood and paid just an outrageous amount for it, and I could have got better. Red Lobster made them look sick. It was the sorriest seafood I've ever paid a big price for in my life. I'm gonna
Some of the
go.
worst seafood I ever ate was in Daytona Beach, Florida.
I can believe that. But boy, they got some good stuff in North Carolina. They know what cooking's all about over there.
They do over there in Morehead City, they really do.
And Sanitary Seafood House has got it
Right.
made. If you fellas got anything you want to say it, because we just got about 2 minutes.
Well, you know Morehead City juts out into the ocean.
I do.
It's not but 35 miles out there to the Gulf Stream.
Well, I know that if you go on another 20 miles, you come to Atlantic, North Carolina, and just a little bit to sea level. You go through sea level
Yeah.
and out to Atlantic.
Yeah.
And you go a little bit further, you can either get on the ferry to Ocracoke or you can drive in the ocean and drown.
Right, yeah.
And US 70 goes from Knoxville, and it's called 40 part of the way, but US 70 goes from Knoxville all the way to the Atlantic Ocean and then drops
Yeah.
off. And it's
We
600
went-
miles from
We
here.
went to Ocracoke when Elizabeth and I first got married, and we were staying in a tent. We set the tent up, and as soon as we got it set up, they had dunes pushed up. We could almost look like we was in a holler. And the lightning was hitting out there and bouncing all around. And I never will forget Elizabeth was scared to death.
I don't blame her.
She went and got in the bathhouse, okay? Then they had them little bugs that bite you called no-see-ums,
Yeah.
okay? They were just eating her up. Some people, I forget where they're from, gave her something to rub on it kept them from biting us. I don't know what it was.
I want about a case of
I
that.
call them flying teeth.
Yeah.
My Elizabeth wants to have nothing to do with Ocracoke.
Well, I ain't never been to eat up, and I never spent the night on Ocracoke. I've stayed on Atlantic Beach, which is there across the end of the, what do you call that, the inland waterway over
Right.
to, from Morehead City. You know, I went to Morehead City a time or two back in the early 70s, and I was there in the summer of 72, and they had Hardee's and some more restaurants there on the beach, and there wasn't nothing over there fit to eat. And over there on, and I'm sure this has changed in case you run the restaurant there on Atlantic Beach, but over there in Morehead City there was a Long John's, Colonel Sanders chicken place over there, and they had
Countryside chicken.
absolutely the best Long John, Colonel Sanders chicken I've ever had. and we'd go over there and eat and then go back to the beach. And I went back about 10 years later, and them there flashy places over on the beach are still there, serving that charcoal burnt food, and them people that are there at the beach are paying a big price for it and eating it. But that Colonel Sanders place over there is out of business because they were not over there where they could be there for the tourist trade, and I always thought that was a shame because that was the
That's location.
Yeah, that was the best Colonel Sanders food I ever got, and I've been to the original and down here too, and we got to go. Tell them about Saturday, fellas.
Okay. Tell them about what?
Saturday.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Saturday. You know, that's the day after Friday.
Mm-hmm.
At 4 o'clock, you can tune in to us here again on UG TV, or you can listen to us on WLAF AM 1450 or WLAF FM 100.9, or you can catch us on WLAF.com on the internet.
1450 WLAF.com.
Yeah, 1450 WLAF.com.
So you ain't got no excuse for missing the next amazing
four ways.
Except maybe the ball game.
4 ways, yeah. Yeah, ball game when
ball
Saturday
game.
night.
I guess. I don't know.
Well, we'll be in reruns too.
Right,
You
yeah,
can you can actually watch us here on
We'll
UG
see you.
TV and
We
see the
will
reruns
see you
later.
on Saturday.
Thank you. Bye.